thanks. Like, hey, Scoob, did you hear Nikki Blake is hosting a Scooby-Doo panel? No. Yeah. Like on today's Scooby-Doo episode, Scooby-Doo and Shaggy meet Nikki Blake. Yeah, and a Scooby Panel. Like, we need to get this puppy started. Okay, Nikki Blake, take it away, Scooby-Doo.
Welcome to the Scooby Panel. I'm your host, Nikki Blake from ScoobyAddicts.com, and today we are talking about the psychology of Scooby-Doo. Before we begin, I'll have everyone introduce themselves, and Wendy, will start with you.
Hi guys, I'm Wendy BRYDGE. I'm a commissioned artist and a longtime Scooby-Doo collector.
Joel.
Hey there, I'm Joel from the YouTube channel Planet Scooby.
And Mark.
Hey there, I'm Mark, and you can find me on Instagram at Scooby and Mark.
Excellent. So I sent you guys articles, and I'm pretty sure that this is going to be a very fun discussion.
Fun. You're funny.
I already know how Wendy feels about some of them, so. So we're going to start with the Wired article, Psychology of Cartoons Part 1, Scooby-Doo by Curtis Silver, and it was published February 14th, 2011. So I'm just going to read my synopsis of it, and then we're going to talk about it. So according to this article, Fred is a narcissist. He is self-centered and vain. He cares too much about his appearance, and wearing an ascot is as vain as it gets. He doesn't like criticism about his appearance or decisions, and he doesn't care about other people's opinions unless he has no choice. At that point, he makes it seem like he was the one that came up with it. Fred is in control of everything, delegating who goes where and how to split up. His posture shows that he is trying to make everyone around him look smaller, and he is very disapproving of Scooby and Shaggy. Daphne has dependent personality disorder. She needs to be the center of attention, which stems from her being the pretty one and coming from a wealthy background. She's accident-prone and always being kidnapped or breaking something, to which Fred comes to her rescue. She started as the damsel in distress, but overcame her disorder further into the franchise when she learned martial arts, learned how to pick locks, and gained valuable problem-solving skills. Velma has obsessive-compulsive personality disorder. She expects things to be how she expects them to be. There must be a certain order to things, which helps her understand what is out of place and makes her an excellent clue finder. Her disorder is not a bad thing when choosing to solve mysteries. Shaggy is a cowardly pothead with hints of paranoia. I saw your face, Wendy.
Yeah.
Shaggy always feels like the rest of the gang is dragging him into situations he doesn't want to be in, which causes him to whine incessantly. He doesn't truly suffer from a mental disorder. He's just a paranoid pothead who is as brave as a wet paper bag. He is the least effective of the gang due to his constant weird food cravings and his fear of everything around him. They only keep him around for comic relief and to keep the gang on their toes. Scooby has dissociative identity disorder. Scooby, along with his entire family, think they are people and not dogs. Scooby walks upright, sometimes in a costume, eats weird food with Shaggy, and he can talk. Scrappy has Napoleon inferiority complex. Scrappy is overcompensating for his short stature by being brave and vigilant. And according to the article, the biggest lesson Scooby taught was teamwork and the ability to work with people who have different personalities. Wendy, what are your thoughts on this article?
It's dangerous starting with me. Might be here a while. Okay, let me just preface this with when Nikki sent these articles, I read them all out loud to Scott the night that you sent them to make it fun. And I was like, I think Nikki's trying to give me a stroke. because I just got more and more mad, honestly. So, yeah. I feel pretty much the same way about all of the articles. This one was sort of the worst. Everything about that was wrong. I just want to start right there. Everything about it was wrong. I don't agree with any of it. I found it mildly offensive, to be perfectly honest. And it brought up the question that I have found I have been asking about many, many things these days, and that is, what show are you watching? What show have you watched that these are the conclusions that you have come to? And I don't know what's the matter with everybody if they think that there's just like no Scooby prior to, I don't know, 2011. Like, we'll just look at modern Scooby and characterize all of these characters that have been around for 50 some years, but we're only going to look at like how they are now. And even that's not always correct either. I don't even know where they make this stuff up, to be honest. And I'm dumber having read some of it, to be honest. I've got the glass. I don't need these glasses. They're not real. I'm dumber having read these articles, so I need something to at least appear like I'm kind of still smart. I definitely take umbrage with a lot of these, but I really think that the worst, because Freddy's my favorite character, but Daphne is a very close second, and I definitely can relate a little bit to Daphne, and I love her. And the fact that this person had the audacity to say, while she started off as a poor model for young girls' confidence, look pretty and the big strong man will come rushing to your rescue. I frequently want to randomly slap people, but this time, like, I really, really would like to, like, slap this bugger in the mouth for saying that. Because again, I'm like, what have you watched? You have not watched classic Scooby. You have not watched modern Scooby. Because if you had, you would never, ever say any of those things. It makes me honestly so angry that people run their mouths about stuff and they literally have no clue what they're talking about. I don't have a problem when people have differing opinions about anything. Everyone is entitled to an opinion. I don't believe that everything is open to interpretation, but you want to interpret stuff your own way, fine. But my goodness, your argument had better be rooted in some small measure of fact. And these people, like, nothing in this article is rooted in fact. He is pulling everything, he or she, whoever wrote it, pulling it right out their butt. Right out. In a big, long, sticky string. That's what this made me think of. Like when your dog has a problem, you know, and he doesn't quite make it to the door, and then you're like, great, this is like 45 minutes to clean this up. That's what this made me think of. I am even struggling to come up with something intelligent to say in retort to this. It's that ridiculous to me. The characterization of Freddy. Have you ever seen Freddy in any of these cartoons? He's full of himself. He's vain and conceited. He's all like, ooh, what I'm wearing. Gets mad when people disagree with him or like do something wrong. Please, someone show me one single instance where that is the way that Freddy behaves. In any iteration of Scooby. It's baloney. It's crap. And I'm getting tired of everybody feeling like they're pseudo smart by taking people, okay, characters, yes, but they're meant to be people, and being like, you know what? Let's just like bring you down. Let's just bring you down. There's nothing wrong with you. And you're actually pretty great, but we can't have that. So we'll just bring you down and like drag you through the mud a couple of times. And I'm like, for what? How crappy do you have to feel about yourself to write an article like this? And mischaracterize every single person and character that you're talking about. And then do it under the guise of like, hoo, I'm so smart. Let's talk about psychology. I'm getting dumber even thinking about it. Honestly, I'm mad, guys. I'm mad. It's ridiculous. This is not like somebody, oh, well, we have a difference of opinion. No, you're a moron. is what you are. And I hope that the person that read this article hears this. I really, really do. Usually I'm like, no, I don't want to offend anybody. I hope I offend you. I really do. Please, someone send this video to the person that wrote that. Because this is for you. Shut the F up. You should not be writing anything on the internet or otherwise. And you certainly should not be talking about Scooby. Because you have lost that privilege. It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. End of rant for now.
Joel, what are your thoughts on the Wired article?
Yeah, Wendy pretty much summed up everything I was going to say. If I were going to, I'm glad you picked her first, because I would just, like, reading this article, I just wanted to point Wendy at it and just like, you go. Just ream this sucker out. Reading this, like, my own psychology based on this author is like, I think he was projecting himself onto Fred. And this is a good example of, I don't know if you've heard of the Dunning-Kruger phenomenon. It's a psychology kind of term, or comes from psychology. It's a study where they noticed people, when they learn a bit of knowledge, they run their mouths and just say the stupidest things. So people have a hobby, this person probably a hobby or interest in psychology, they learn some things, and then they slowly climb up Mount Stupid, just saying stupid things that are completely wrong. And if they continue, finally they realize how stupid they are, and they go into the valley and they kind of plateau out where they become, like, everyone's probably guilty of it. We've all probably learned things and run our mouths when we shouldn't have, and we later on learn our errors of our way. But we probably don't go on the internet and type things like this. We probably just make odd comments to our friends and then realize weeks later, like, why did I say that? It's so dumb of me to say or think that. But this person, and this plagues the internet, is just full of, like, this effect, this phenomenon where people are just gurus, charlatans, selling information or just their opinions. And this is just reminding me of, like, essentially what this is. It's just, this person's just on Mount Stupid, just running their mouth. Probably, like, reading this article too, like, this person doesn't seem like they have many friends. They don't seem like a nice person. They're just being totally negative about everything. They could have gone into so many more interesting ways, but they just went into just, like, I think if you threw astrological signs at Scooby and the gang, it would have been more factual than this, which is saying how much I hated this article.
I wonder if they did it because they knew that they would probably get a lot of views on it. You know, there's so many people that are just doing whatever.
Rage baiting.
Yeah, just to get people to read their stuff or like their stuff or comment.
I think that applies to all these articles.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. Mark, what are your thoughts on the Wired article?
Wendy and Joel have summed it up pretty much. I agree. Like, this, when I was reading this, I was upset. Like, I'm like, it's a cartoon. Like, why are we analyzing these things? Like, let it be what it is. It's enjoyment of people's childhood. Like, that's it. We don't have to have, all these things and diagnosis for shows and things that aren't even real. Like, it bothered me because it's like, clearly this person does not like Scooby-Doo, or either they are just doing this, like you said, to get clickbait. It could be, numerous things it could be. And it's like, I have never thought this when I watch any of these. I don't analyze it and be like, oh, well, that's what he's doing, or, oh, well, that's what she's doing, or she has this. They're teenagers. Like, let them be. They're learning. They're not even, like, in the real world, they wouldn't even be, like, completely, like, mindful, developed yet. Because, it takes, like, till you're 26 to have, full working, maturity and your brain. And like, we don't know all these things. Like, and why would you want to write this?
I
So,
think it's kind of sad that they just overlooked all the positive,
right.
because there is so much positive with the gang. I mean, if you're going to do a blog post like this or an article, at least include the good stuff too.
Right,
Yeah.
like they always stick together. I mean, they don't leave each other behind. I mean, there's all kinds of things that we could look at that are positive, but there's not one listed in this.
Yeah, the only thing they listed was that they teach teamwork and being able to work with different people.
Yeah. I think Joel kind of hit on something where he said that, the guy was like projecting himself onto Fred. You want to talk about psychology? There is a psychology, I think, to what is rampant today where people are just like projecting all of their own negative traits onto everything. And it's like, okay, well, I'm lacking in this, this, and this. And they see someone who's not, and they're like, okay, well, we can't have that. I can't be lacking in something that you're not. And instead of trying to build themselves up and better themselves, it's easier for them to try and tear somebody else down. And that's pretty twisted. If you really think about it, it's that idea of like, you have a positive side, you have a negative side. You get to choose which of those sides you go to. And it's like today, everyone is defaulting over to that negative side. And that is such a departure. As someone who grew up watching a lot of cartoons and television shows that were made in the 50s and the 60s, comparing that to like what they're doing now and seeing the mindset of the viewer and the writers and the people that are producing this stuff. And I'm like, boy, you have done like a total 180. We have gone from good versus evil and good always wins, even when bad stuff happens. I mean, it's not like those shows were devoid of death or violence or, bad things. But in the end, it always went to the positive. That was the point. Rod Serling's writing. People tried to compare classic Twilight Zone, to Black Mirror when it came out. And I'm like, you hush your mouth. Absolutely not. Because what made classic Twilight Zone special and good and evergreen, that it's still around, after all these years, and why all of this new crap that is just trying to be a knockoff of that has fallen by the wayside, is because it's not a show about weird stuff. The whole point is that, Rod Serling talked about negativity in the world and within people, but his point was always, here's your warning. This is what you're trending towards. This is the bad stuff that you're embracing. This is the negative side that you're shifting to, but you can choose to go the other way. You can be better. This doesn't have to end like this. The people do not have to degrade into a society where we murder each other for thinking something different or out of suspicion. That was the point. It was encouraging. Black Mirror is the opposite of that. Nikki, I'm sorry, you're going to have to bleep it, but I have to say it like this. Black Mirror was, well, you're f***ed, I'm f***ed, the whole world's f***ed, we can't do anything about it, so f*** it. And they had the audacity to be like, oh, that's just like Twilight Zone. No, excuse me, they missed the point. And today, people are they are gravitating towards all of that negativity, and they see anything that is aspiring. And they're like, nope, don't want it. I don't know if that's because they're just lazy and they don't want to put anything into themselves. So it's easier to just make mainstream culture, mainstream ideology of the mindset that like, well, it can't get any better. It's just garbage anyway, so let's not even try. I don't know if it's out of laziness or what, but man, it's disgusting. And like, these articles are such a prime example of that weird psychology that is very prevalent in the world right now. and they're projecting it onto everything. And the irony that Scooby is such a show that points away from that, it points to the good. There's no real negativity in Scooby-Doo among the gang. The negativity is the crap around them, the bad guys, the evil around them that comes at them. And they are battling that. But we're not getting that negativity coming out of them. The whole point is that they are a positive force, and no matter what you do to them, they don't deviate from that. What is more aspiring to any person living on this earth, young, old, anywhere in between? And the fact that we're like letting people, letting the majority of society take that away and like toss it in the garbage? Oh, absolutely not. No way. We have to say something about it.
I do feel like people focus so much on negativity. Like, if you look at a lot of the reels, they're not positive. You know, you have people who are videoing their kids who are having a meltdown, and instead of trying to fix that and make their kid not feel like their, world is falling apart, they're taping it so that they can put it on social media for other people to see. And people are watching it and they're commenting on it. And these people are making money off of their kids having a horrible time trying to get through something.
Yeah.
And like, to me, that's disgusting.
Agreed.
But this is the world we live in. People like negative things. They like when someone else is in distress.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Our next article is from the Hollywooden blog. How Scooby-Doo utilized neo-Jungian archetypes and an infinitely adaptable formula to become a beloved, enduring franchise, by Maggie Taylor, written September 18th, 2021. Scooby has lasted the test of time because of its concept. You can put it in any format, movie, series, comic book, video game, and it will work well. And each gang member falls under an archetype. An archetype is a recurrent symbol or motif in literature, art, or mythology. There are 12 archetypes. The innocent exhibits happiness, goodness, optimism, safety, romance, and youth. The orphan desires connection and belonging, fearing being left out or standing out. The hero, on a mission to make the world a better place, the hero is courageous, bold, and inspirational. The rebel questions authority and breaks the rules. The rebel craves rebellion and revolution. The explorer finds inspiration in travel, risk, discovery, and the thrill of new experiences. The creator, imaginative, inventive, and driven to build things of enduring meaning and value. The ruler creates order from the chaos. The ruler is typically controlling and stern, yet responsible and organized. The magician wishes to create something special and make dreams a reality. The magician is seen as visionary and spiritual. The lover creates intimate moments, inspires love, passion, romance, and commitment. The caregiver protects and cares for others, is compassionate, nurturing, and generous. The jester brings joy to the world through humor, fun, irreverence, and often likes to make some mischief. The sage, committed to helping the world gain deeper insight and wisdom, the sage serves as the thoughtful mentor or advisor. So according to the article, Fred is a hero, creator, and ruler. Shaggy is the orphan, rebel, and jester. And Velma is the innocent, explorer, and sage. They did not specify Daphne or Scooby, which I thought was kind of odd. So what are your thoughts on this article, Joel?
I'm glad you summed up that article because I had problems following it. Because later on he talks about, or she, I think you said it was Maggie, they go into science because they had a hypothesis, and that's what science is, and that just kind of threw me off. This one was weak sauce. Like you can take any of those archetypes and apply it to anyone. In the like, everyone's a rebel because they're trespassing. Everyone's everything basically. Like you can take Scooby's run for 56 years, maybe not the time of this writing, which was probably 10 years ago, so 46 at that point. We've seen the characters in all sorts of situations. It was just, I just thought this whole article was dumb for some reason. I didn't want to put the person down, but they're trying to come off as smart and intelligent, but their thoughts just felt incoherent and just all over the place. And archetypes isn't psychology, it's like literature. Like they were talking about literature and mythology. It's just things people have come up after the fact to apply to literature and has nothing to do with psychology and more to do with tarot cards, I feel. You have the same sort of thing with Star Wars being the hero's journey, which harkens back to like classic Japanese literature. That's what George Lucas followed to make Star Wars. I'm being overly nerdy here, but I'm sure people who write maybe read a book on archetypes and go, oh, okay, maybe I can steal some of these personality traits for this character to make them more interesting in the situation. And you don't usually do it in reverse, where you take it and just kind of apply it to someone. And that's not how it really works. And I doubt the writers of Scooby-Doo ever took these archetypes, and they probably used real life situations or something they saw from growing up as a kid. Like they maybe took something from Abbott and Costello and applied it to Shaggy, or they took something from classic jungle movies and applied it to Fred and Daphne or whatever, or classic Gothic movies and applied it, just not deliberately, just, playing tribute, but not being aware of it. I'm rambling. I'm going to shut up.
I do agree that this article was all over the place. It started with something and then went into archetypes, never explained what the archetypes were. I had to look that up. And then went into not even talking about archetypes anymore. And it was a very confusing article. Mark, what are your thoughts on the archetypes article?
I basically, yeah, I agree with Joel. Like there is, they obviously got their ideas from somewhere. We don't know where. And, some of it was their own thoughts, I'm sure. But like this article, it was all over the place. And there was a few good things in it. Like I can tell this person likes Scooby-Doo. But it's like, we didn't see all the things that they said that we were supposed to see in this article. And like they listed, a lot of things, but really never went in depth.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. They didn't go into much detail. It's like, here, this is my thought. And then, like, I had another thought that has nothing to do with that. And then another thought that doesn't have to do with any of the other stuff. And yeah. Wendy, your thoughts on the archetype article?
I mean, you really only had to look at the pretentious title to know where this was going to go, and that it was just going to be like, bleh, and there wasn't really going to be a lot in it. Certainly probably one of the least offensive ones out of all the things that we read. It's kind of a non-event. This article reminded me of the joke about like pseudo intellectuals who will just like pick a big impressive sounding word out of a thesaurus and then use it incorrectly in a sentence because the majority of people that they're talking to are just as dumb as they are, and they think, oh, my writing, it's so perpendicular. And unfortunately, their audience is like, oh, is he ever smart and intelligent? What a word to use, because people are that easily influenced by that kind of stuff, And it's silly. It's ridiculous. My question that came out of this article is, why do we have to label everything? Why do we it's 2025. Have we not learned enough about life and people to know that we don't need labels? Labels typically are not beneficial in any way, shape, or form, in my opinion. I don't think that they do anyone any good. And like Joel said, when somebody's making a character, like, you might pick and choose characteristics from like all 12 of those archetypes. Very few people, if anyone, is one specific archetype. And I think that they kind of, when they talk about that stuff, or when they're trying to take something, like Joel said, I don't really think it should, that what they're talking about should be applied in this manner. They're kind of like, okay, well, I have an interest in this, this, and this. Let's see if I can bring it all together and make it a thing. And it's like, it didn't work. You threw a bunch of stuff together and there was no binder. There was nothing to like hold it together and make it a cohesive unit. It's just a bunch of jumbled up thoughts, and that's about it. It, like everyone said, because it wasn't just one of us, it was everyone, like, it didn't go anywhere. You said a bunch of words and you didn't say anything, though. And I'm really starting to see how much people, they see I think that they see something visually, and they, in their brain, they try to make it something intellectual. In some of these, and then just in my own thinking about it and reflecting in preparation for this, when people label Velma as the smart one, the brainiac, the nerd, I'm like, okay, well, what if we were to take the character of Velma and we strip down her exterior and we made her look like Daphne? We take her glasses off. We give her some makeup and a nice hairdo. We give her a fancy outfit, and we change nothing else about her, though. It's still Velma in everything except the exterior package. Would people still give her the same label? And no, I don't think that they would. To be honest, I don't think they would. And one of the things that I personally think makes Scooby so evergreen and makes the characters so relatable to everyone, they're not bland, they are generic. That means that every single one of them is similar enough that everyone can relate to each character on some level. So I don't even think it's appropriate to give the gang any of the labels that we give them, because to me, I'm like, okay, I could name episodes for you where Daphne does what Velma does, and where Freddy does what Shaggy does, and where Scooby does what Freddy does. I mean, good grief, there's even an episode somewhere in there where Scooby's driving the van. So the labels kind of, they're not only not necessary, but you're hindering the integrity of the character by saying that you need to label it as something, because all of the Scooby characters embody all of these wonderful characteristics. Are they exactly the same? Of course not. No two people are. But I really don't think that the Scooby gang are as different as what we have started trying to suggest that they are. You know, like, oh, well, why would they be friends? They're so different. It's the jock, and it's the pretty girl, and it's the nerd. And I'm like, but is it though? None of the jocks at my school were like Fred. None of the nerds at my school were like Velma. And I don't remember anybody being like Daphne. All the pretty girls were biatches, and Daphne's not that. So it's like the labels kind of, if you really stop and think about it, since we're talking about psychology, if you really stop and examine the gang and how they were meant, like how they were created in the beginning, I think that people would start to realize that, yeah, the labels kind of like, they're arbitrary. And it's like, okay, but if they're arbitrary, then why do we need them? Why do we have to put a label on everything? You don't need a label on it to understand it, because there's not always something to dissect. People are what they are. They like what they like. They don't like what they don't like. Some people have a high IQ. Some people have a low IQ. Having a low IQ doesn't necessarily make you stupid. Having a high IQ doesn't necessarily make you smart. It's all just so relative when you stop and think about it. And it's like, guys, stop trying so hard to put everything into boxes, because they don't fit in the boxes, and they weren't meant to go in a box either. And all that you're doing by suggesting archetypes or labels or stereotypes, you just like, you're putting a lid on everybody. Like, you're dampening everybody down. And it's like, come on, just let people be what they are. Don't analyze it. Just leave it alone. And appreciate the fact that every single member of the Scooby Gang is just as competent as the guy next to him or the girl next to him. None of them are incompetent, not even Shaggy and Scooby. And they all work together, yes, but each one of them is quite capable of doing all of the things on their own too when they're pushed to it. Is it better when you're working together? Is it easier? Is it, you know, will it shorten time? Will it make things a little bit less hard to do? Sure, it will. But nobody's going to tell me that Fred can't solve the mystery without Daphne and Velma, and Daphne can't solve the mystery without Scooby and Scooby and Shaggy can't solve the mystery without the other three. They are all fully capable of doing all of the jobs. They all do each of the jobs at some point in the show. And like, let's just like quit with the labels, guys. You want to talk psychology and Scooby, then talk psychology and Scooby, but base it in reality. Pay attention, observe. Psychology, in part, is about observing things and then extrapolating something from that. These people, they're not looking at anything except up their butt, is what it seems like to me. So, yeah, it was less offensive, but also just like, you missed the boat, I think, a little bit.
I think maybe if they did the article where they really actually talked about archetypes and how they could have fit into each category and given examples of that maybe the article would have been a little bit better. I mean, anyone can fit, like Joel said, into these categories. Anybody, not just the Scooby Gang, but anybody, because everyone has done something that will put them into that category. So it would have been interesting to get more of an idea of how they would fit into those categories with examples.
Yeah.
But yeah, the article was just kind of a mess. So Our next article is from Mashable. It's 50 Years of Scooby-Doo, A Lesson in Skepticism and How Humans Are Often the Real Monsters by Janal Bat, written September 17th, 2019. Velma is the real role model and skeptic. Shaggy and Scooby. Fear and bravery can coexist. Fear made Scooby and Shaggy run faster, and Scooby Snacks gave them incentive to be brave and face their fears. The lesson here was that not everything is black and white, and sometimes you have to figure out the clues to solve the mystery, and that humans use fear of the unknown for selfish purposes. And it's another article that thinks that Scooby and Shaggy are stoners. Mark, what are your thoughts on the Mashable article?
So I kind of, same thing with this one. It's, one, I don't like that they think they're stoners. That's never been, I don't like when people make comments like that. Because I've had, people in life say that, and they're like, oh, well, that's based off that. No, it's not. Like, if it would have been, we would have been told that. Like, we would have known. And, like, I liked where it said, it talked about more about the Hanna-Barbera things some. I really liked that. So they done a little bit of their research. They're, like, I don't see them as having these disorders. And like we said, that can be placed on anyone. Like we've all done something. We all fit into some type of category. And it's just not, they have a lot of things that, it talks about fear a lot. Well, we're all scared of something. And, that was normal for them to feel that way. There was the unknown. They have fears. They didn't know what they were going to see. And so it was very, eye-opening, and I didn't really go for it. But it was eye-opening.
I did like that they said that fear and bravery can coexist. I mean, we've all been scared of something before, right?
Sure.
And have overcome it in some way. So, you know, like for me, it's a spider. They always end up coming down from the ceiling in the shower, like in a horror movie. And there's nowhere for me to go other than to take care of the spider. So after the fear kicks in and I like panic a little bit, then the bravery kicks in and I can get rid of the spider. Wendy, what are your thoughts on the Mashable article?
Well, just to pick up on what you were just saying, I don't think that people realize that courage and bravery are not a lack of fear. Courage and bravery is being able to function and do what needs to be done in spite of your fear. And I think that that misinterpretation of those words really doesn't do anybody any favors, because it sort of suggests that, oh, well, we shouldn't have any fear. If I'm courageous, I won't have any fear. I'm conquering my fear. Conquering your fear would mean you're not scared of the spider coming down off the ceiling anymore. And you're just like, meh, whatever, it's just a spider. That would be conquering your fear. Realistically speaking, most people are not ever going to conquer their fear of anything. What you learn to do is control the fear and live your life in spite of it. That is courage and bravery, in my opinion. It's not about not having the fear. So that's not a disagreement with the article. He brought up a point. I wish it would have been elaborated on a little bit better. I'm not sure that what was said was super helpful because it didn't really go anywhere. But what I did sort of take umbrage with on this one, keep losing my spot here. Okay. Is it okay if I read like a little section of it? Because I feel like it needs to be these 3 little paragraphs together.
Yeah.
But the two most important lessons that Scooby-Doo teaches anyone are about skepticism and never losing sight that the scariest monsters are the ones we create ourselves. When I think about it now, using my quote woke and grown-up mind that knows things, I realize that the show becomes relevant even today when believing news on face value might not be the smartest thing to do. Also, it took a little bit of growing up to realize that Shaggy and Scooby were kind of sort of probably high most of the time. Clue, Scooby snacks and Shaggy's quote sandwich. Probably why, despite realizing that there was no such thing as ghosts, they almost always were scared the first time they started on a new mystery. Okay. There's a lot of things in that I'm just like, yeah, no, you're talking out your butt again. I am someone that believes in ghosts, so I can't really use myself as an example here, but I guarantee you that there are plenty of people on this planet who do not believe in ghosts or anything supernatural, and if you take them into a haunted house or a graveyard after midnight and you tell them a scary story or you make scary sounds or whatever, they're gonna get scared. And you'd be like, oh, but you don't believe in ghosts, so you wouldn't be scared because you don't believe in the ghosts. No. Your skepticism does not preclude you from being afraid. So I take issue with that statement because I don't think it's accurate in any way, shape, or form and for anybody. And kind of, if, again, psychology is the topic here, so it's like there's thought involved, kind of screwed themselves with me when they're like, oh, well, yeah, now that I know something about life, yeah, I can see that they were stoners. Okay, right there, like any credentials that you might have had, they're gone. They're gone because you just proved that you can't observe anything and that you don't understand anything. Because, yeah, Nikki and I have even talked to plenty of people who worked on early Scooby who were like, yeah, that was not what was going on. So the fact that this is even still like a discussion in 2025 boggles my mind. It's on the level of like the flat earthers, where it's like, what? We're really gonna argue that the earth is flat and that you can sail off the end of it? Like, really, guys, really, is that what we're doing here? That's what we're gonna do? That's kind of what that is for me, the equivalent here. So already I wouldn't believe anything that this person had to say after they made that statement, but that's just me. I don't. Also, trying to like make it into like don't believe news on face value. I get it. I get the point that was trying to be made here, but again, I'm just like, didn't quite work for me. You know, there was a way of taking that point and like making it relevant in being like, okay, well, actually, no, you know what? I can't make it work. I kind of understand where they were trying to go with it, but I'm like, yeah, that wasn't really, I don't really think that that was a lesson here. Because like there was something going on all the time. The kids pretty much knew that it most of the time that it wasn't something supernatural, even though they were scared. I don't know. It seems like they were trying to make a point here that just there wasn't really a point to be made for me. So yeah, I don't know. The biggest mystery to me after reading this article is once again, how did we get to a time and place where literally anyone with enough money for a computer and the internet can go on there and write something that is seen by literally millions of people? Some people just shouldn't. Like, I'm not saying that I should be allowed to like go out and talk in public and have my opinions like all over the internet. I'm not saying that, but there are definitely some people where it's like, yeah, you should just like zip and just be quiet. Just like be seen and not heard. And this is one of those times, I think.
I was very confused by the article because when you're talking about real humans being monsters, I would equate that to the villains being unmasked and their people. But that was not even mentioned in this article.
Right.
And that should have been the point that was made, not that, oh, there's fake news.
Right.
Like, yeah, everyone knows there's fake news. But what does that have to do with Scooby-Doo?
Yeah.
Yeah. Joel, what were your thoughts on the Mashable article?
Yeah, there was some good stuff, but it was overshadowed by the pothead thing, and I just lost interest in it. Because he just lost all credibility for me. Just, again, mentioning the pothead thing, it should be dead or whatever, and it's just stupid, and he just made the whole article stupid. To me, even though there probably are good points in it, hard for me to, like, I just wrote down like one word, stupid, when I summarize this article.
That's great. I do think that we need to stop calling Shaggy and Scooby potheads. I mean, it's a cartoon for kids. It obviously was not written with the intention that they are stoners. It's for kids. Like, people want to make something, turn it into something that it's not, and make it negative just because it's fun to make. I don't know. I don't understand it. But obviously, they are not stoners. The next article, The Psychology of Scooby-Doo Friends in the Workplace. This was a confusing article for me too. By psychologist Mimi on February 28th, 2014. So Washington Post's Hank Stuver said kids should meddle, dogs are sweet, life is groovy, and if something scares you, you should confront it. And I kind of thought that was a cool quote, so I kept it in my summary. Scooby-Doo was about being an optimist and taking on battles head on. They referred to the Mystery Machine as a serial killer van. Scooby Gang is used to refer to people on a mission, like on Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Scooby Gangs, whether real or in the TV show, have three things in common: piety, which is loyalty to each other, problem solving, and paranoia. I think this was the last few sentences of this article. Scooby gangs form all the time in the workplace, and those alliances are formed based on specific roles each person brings to the team. At the end of the day, when you notice that a group of people seems to be constantly whispering to each other and running about in the workplace setting traps, reading books, and having the munchies, it may be that it is a Scooby gang trying to unmask some great injustice.
Mhm.
This was a weird article for me. Wendy,
Yeah.
your thoughts?
Yeah, there's a couple things here, although this one absolutely made me think of you, Nikki. They're like, oh, every workplace has a Scooby gang, and I've been in all these gangs. And I'm like, yeah, Nikki's like a gang of one. There's no way that Nikki would team up with anyone that she works with, even if like the apocalypse was coming. There's no flipping way. Nikki would be a Scooby team of one, and she would be all five in one, and she'd be like, I don't need any of you. And she really wouldn't. So that I did. Obviously, like right there, I've disproved the entire article because the proof is right there that the article's full of baloney. Okay. Again, the fact that you're calling yourself psychologist Mimi, pretty pretentious. So, okay. There's a couple of quotes here where I'm just like, yeah. The Scooby Gang battled evil with brute force, wit, sarcasm, and magic. When they didn't work together, they would fail. While outcasts, they were also a prototype of the modern New York City hipster who is often unimpressed in the face of catastrophe. Once again, what show are you watching?
Was
What show
that
are they?
in reference to Buffy, though? Because I was confused a little bit by that
Maybe.
point where she was like comparing Scooby Gang to Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and then I wasn't sure if that, because
Oh,
that
maybe.
totally made no sense like talking about the actual Scooby Gang like that.
Well, I guess she did call them the Scooby Gang at one point, Buffy. So maybe that, you might be right. That might be it. Because I was going to say, like, yeah, Scooby and the gang don't really use magic for anything. You know, that's not really a thing. And like the rest of it is all just kind of like, okay. Okay. So honestly, my biggest issue here is the once again incorrect use of the word piety. This is something like everyone has buttons that get pushed, you know? Piety is one of my buttons because piety is considered a virtue by most people, including Christians, which as a Christian, I take great offense to the idea that piety is a virtue. Piety is not a virtue. If someone called me a pious person, I would be extremely offended and I would be reconsidering every single thing about my life if that's actually what I was. Because piety, also even in the article, even the incorrect worldly idea of what piety has become is also wrong because piety has nothing to do with loyalty. It has nothing to do with that. Either in my definition of piety and the definition that just gets like tossed around all over the place. Piety is like having like some kind of like deep belief, and it doesn't have to be religious, but like a deep conviction, to be reverent of something, to have like a very deep respect for something. That is kind of how they play off what piety is. So I don't know where the loyalty thing came from. Again, out somebody's rear end. Piety is being self-righteous. Piety is self-righteousness. Piety is not a good thing. And no one will ever convince me otherwise. To the Christians that because like back in Puritan days, you wanted to be pious. And I'm like, did you read the book though? Did you read the book? Clearly you didn't, because the book makes it very clear that piety is not a virtue. So once again, I just feel like if you're going to write an article about anything, you can't just get the thesaurus out and pick some word, you know, and just toss it in there and be like, yeah, this is what this means, and expect that. I mean, I get it. You're right. Most people are just going to read it and be like, okay, yep. And they're not going to question anything because they don't know anything and they don't care. But some of us do know and some of us do care. So once again, nothing in this article would I believe or give any credence to, because like you can't even define the word even improperly, properly. Completely, like, where did that even come from? I have no idea. Again, out the rear end. One more quote from this. Scooby gangs form all the time in the workplace, and those alliances are formed based on specific roles each person brings to the team. This, I just want to bring it back to what I already said about labels. Every person in the Scooby gang can do the things that everyone else does. No one person in the Scooby gang is good for only one thing, meaning without them, the rest of the gang would fall apart. I'm sorry, you will never convince me that that is how Scooby-Doo is structured, because it's not. So, yeah, I mean, you want to have your cute little, like, ooh, Scooby gang in the workplace quip. I mean, okay, but you're basing it on, like, nothing. Again, you're basing it on something that's just not even, it's not even true. And again, the reason that Scooby has lasted this long and is relatable and evergreen is because all of the characters are interchangeable. Velma is not just her glasses. We've made it that, but like I said earlier, you take her glasses off, people would not think the same way about her. I really don't think that they would. Sometimes it's not even Shaggy and Scooby that are the bait for the ghosts. Freddy, Daphne, and Velma have done that before. So it's not like we could argue, oh, well, without Scooby and Shaggy, you'd never catch the ghost because you need some idiot to like go out as bait. No. You haven't watched enough Scooby. Go back and watch it again. So they all play. No one person is filling one particular role. And I think that that is also what makes Scooby-Doo such a great role model for people, because it shows you that you don't need a label or a specific role to be valuable. That you can coexist with other people who are like you or not like you. It doesn't matter. Worry about yourself. Make yourself useful, like every member of the gang does. So once again, get out of here with your labels and your cliques and your gangs and stuff, because like, I'm sorry, it doesn't work in Scooby. It just doesn't.
I think it's weird that anyone would call themselves the Scooby Gang in a work environment.
Mm-hmm. True.
Joel, what were your thoughts on this article?
Well, this one got 2 words from me. It was the I can't make any sense out of it. I've been on the internet for 30 years, and I thought I saw like the most, like, I've never seen, this is like the 4th poorly written article. Like, that does not make any sense. I don't know how I've avoided this for so long. Like I'm all over the place on the internet, all the corners, I'm there, but this is a new realm that I do not want to revisit. I can't, yeah, nothing made sense. I felt like I was stupid, but I know I'm not. Well, I am stupid, but it's debatable. Yeah, this was just, who's this audience? Where does this audience exist that's viewing this stuff?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely, none of these were written for us, that's for sure.
No,
for
no.
Scooby fans. Mark, what were your thoughts on the article?
So basically, I agree with, a lot of what Wendy said and Joel. I did not like that they, referred to the joke of the serial killer van like that. No, just no. And then I didn't like that they done the workplace thing. Like, Scooby-Doo's not in the workplace, and we, we don't need that. So it's just like, I mean, yeah, everyone brings problem solving skills at the workplace, but Joe might can do the same thing that Steve can do. It's not, like Nikki said, it's not just a select few. And if you take each character out, the gang is still going to function. Like, they're going to be okay. We've seen that with other iterations of Scooby-Doo, like, the new Scooby-Doo Mysteries, when it had Daphne and Shaggy and Scooby and Scrappy. Like, we've seen that. It's okay. It can still work. And the article was I don't like that these people are calling themselves psychologists. Like, provide us with some credentials. Like, well, we need to know things.
Where did the mystery machine being called a serial killer van come from?
Oh, I'm so glad that you asked that. I have never, I get the reference, like a cube van, and that's like a thing. I have never heard that in relation to Scooby in my life, ever.
I haven't either. That was new for me.
Yeah, I've heard the other version, not of the mystery machine, but the van.
Mm-hmm.
I won't say it, but it's a 4-letter word.
I don't know. I've never heard of the mystery machine being referred to like that, and
No.
yeah, I don't know. Again, it's just taking something that's wholesome and turning it into something that's not. And we have to remember that this was made for kids. So, yeah. The final thing was the DISC personality test. So, Fred Jones is always shown in the leader position. He does this quite literally by walking in the first position as the gang is shown walking through spooky swamps, ghostly graveyards, and mysterious mansions. His creators drew him with the stature of a chieftain. The gang looks to Fred for direction, and his decisiveness is a trait that is not possessed by others in the gang. He has a goal, he has a plan, and he is determined to solve the mystery despite Daphne, Shaggy, and Scooby's tendencies to accidentally mess up the plan. Shaggy and Scooby, we rarely see one without the other, and they are made for each other. They would do anything for a Scooby snack. This is a key to their approval-seeking behavior motivation, and are always lighthearted and fun-loving. Other than the perps who would have gotten away with it if it weren't for those meddling kids, who doesn't love Shaggy and Scooby? They don't hide their emotions and are very persuasive through their ease of interactions with people. They usually botch Fred's plans, but their ability to be flexible always helps the gang catch the bad guy. Daphne Blake. Who's the cute redhead who owns the mystery machine but lets Fred drive it anyway? Patient Daphne Blake. She's the pre-MacGyver, whose purse contains anything you could imagine to help the cause. She's kind and gentle, and she is the glue that keeps the balance and harmony of the gang's adventures. Daphne reliably takes care of everyone else, who keeps those Scooby snacks in stock, even shouting, "Scooby-Doo, where are you?" to find her lost friends. And Velma Dinkley. Velma can be seen with her face in a book. She's always well read on various and obscure information, and the gang can always depend on Velma for solving the mystery through contemplative and careful fact-finding. She is logical and unemotional. We don't see Velma getting freaked out by ghosts and swamp creatures. She's drawn with thick glasses, so much that without her glasses, she is completely blind, not able to see or focus on the details that allows the puzzle pieces to fall into place. Her relationship with the gang is unemotional. There isn't a sense of devotion to the people, but an extreme sense of loyalty to their purpose. She's a rule follower and relies on these rules to maintain order in an otherwise muddled mess of chaotic characters. Joel? What are your thoughts on the personality test?
Yeah, after slogging through like the other 5 or 4, this one was like, it's fine, it's cute. I could pick apart a lot of things, like the Velma thing, unless he's or she is basing it on Scooby Apocalypse. I don't think Velma's unemotional. I've seen her run from ghosts in every episode. Mm-hmm. Fear is an emotion, right? Or I don't know if it's an emotion. What is it? Is it emotion, Wendy? Or is
I would say you could classify it as an emotion for sure.
There's fight or flight, and I'm like, oh, well, that's a reaction. But yeah, Velma's emotional. It's just reminded me of something like someone would have wrote in 2007 where you're on Facebook and it's like, what Scooby-Doo character are you? And you have to go, Facebook warns you, oh, you're going to an outside site. You're going to get it's on your computer if you go here, but you do it anyway. And then you get your answer and you're like, ah, and you close your phone and move on with your life. Like, I didn't put much thought into this. It's okay. It's not really psychological or anything. It's just cute.
I found it really odd that they said Velma is unemotional
Yeah.
and she can't relate to the rest of the gang. Like, she's just kind of there.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't she carry cough medicine for
Yeah, for
Shaggy?
Shaggy.
I mean, if she was unemotional and didn't have a connection to the gang, she wouldn't have done that.
Yeah. No sense of devotion. What the hell's she doing there then?
Right. Yeah. Mark, what were your thoughts on the personality test?
So I agree. Like it was cute. I don't feel like it really went into the characters that much. Like the synopsis did, of each character, but like when you actually took the test, like you weren't answering anything that was, related to them. So I actually took the test and I got a SCI, which is for Daphne, Velma, Shaggy, and Scooby. So, which is ironically enough, I like all the characters. So I guess that's, part of my personality coming out. So there could be some things to it. I just want to know, like how do they achieve their answers? I'm always one that wants to look at the detail.
Yeah. Wendy, what were your thoughts on the personality test?
Okay, well, first off, they spelled MacGyver wrong. So, like, get out, leave, turn in your blogging badge because you have no business. I mean, like, you wrote it on a computer, you posted it on the internet. That means you have Google and you could have, like, quickly typed it in and seen that there is an A in MacGyver, but whatever. What do I know? Who cares, right? Screw the details. I wanted it to be cute, but again, I just so much like we're like swimming in crap up to our eyeballs tonight with all this stuff. You know what I mean? Like everyone's got like real loose bowels. That's the most polite way I could think to say that. I wanted to say it so differently, but I'm trying to be respectful and have like a PG-ish show here. But yeah, there's a lot of crap going on with all this stuff. And it's just being gussied up with like the Scooby names and with like a fun, I mean, who doesn't love a quiz? I am, you show me a personality quiz and I can't get to it fast enough. That is, yeah, I have that problem for sure. But again, like, what are you watching? What show are you watching? None of this is really that relevant to Scooby, unless it's some iteration of Scooby that I've never seen, in which, I mean, we already know that I feel like if it's not classic Scooby, it doesn't exist anyway. Yeah, I don't know, guys. Like, at this point, we've all lost so many brain cells. There's like a pile of them here next to me on the floor. I'm thinking of like bottling them up and trying to sell them on eBay. How Scooby-Doo rotted my brain. I don't know. Maybe I'm desperate enough for money to do something like that. I don't know. Guys, what? I'm so glad this is the last one. Because, like, it was fun to rant about this stuff, but at the same time, I'm legitimately mad about it. Because it's so stupid. And to think that people are talking about this stuff, or they're trying to talk about it in an intellectual way, and this is all they can come up with. I'm scared. I'm scared for the future. I'm scared for what it's going to look like in another like 20 years when the people that like are writing this crap have spread enough of it that everybody believes it, and then they raise kids that believe it. I mean, yeah, we're going to have to Joel, what was the name of that place that we were all going to buy and have like Scooby Land, and we just weren't going to invite anybody there, and like the whole world can burn as long as our little compound is fine. Let's go.
Yeah. I agree with a lot of the characteristics that they put for the gang. I feel like a lot of it was the stereotypical stuff that, I mean, luckily they didn't put if you got Shaggy or Scooby that you were a stoner. But yeah, and to say that Velma is unemotional, like watch Scooby-Doo. Please watch it. Because that's not true. Not true. That's like the worst way that they could characterize her. And I mean, she doesn't always have her face in a book. Like it's very rare that you see her just sitting reading a book. Like she's
Exactly.
finding clues, she's solving mysteries. If she's looking at a book, it's because it's helping her to solve the mystery. Like, yeah. Yeah. Final thoughts on the psychology of Scooby-Doo. Mark?
Basically, I just don't. I don't like it. I mean, there's no way to, sugarcoat this. I'm not going to sugarcoat this. Because it's, why? That's my first question is why. Like, if we're going to make a difference, like, let's make a difference with things that's not a cartoon. Like, let's look at real world scenarios. I did not like all the negative things they portrayed on the characters. We didn't get much, if any, about positive things. And they should be lifted up. So just basically just no.
Wendy, your final thoughts?
Yeah, if you're gonna, it's fine. You want to talk psychology about whatever, but you got to root it in some kind of fact. And the whole point of like self-reflection and trying to analyze how you are, how other people are, the whole point is that you're looking for something that is accurate. And every single thing about what we read tonight is devoid of accuracy. They're trying, when you were reading this last one and you were going through the Velma one, I had this realization where I'm like, this all is such a good example of when you're so desperate to put a label on something, either for fun or because you actually genuinely feel like that's a necessary thing or you can't relate to it. The amount that they had to reach to even attempt to do that in all of these articles is the proof that labeling stuff is it's garbage, because they reached for all of this to the point of just telling blatant untruths about a show that anyone can go and watch and see for themselves. Like, you're full of it. You're just full of it. Your characterizations on everything are wrong. It's that simple. And you can't just run around telling lies about something like it's true. I mean, I get it. That's what happens these days. But like, let's not perpetuate that, which is why I'm so glad that everyone had a negative reaction to all of this stuff, and where we weren't all just like, okay, well, we have to play nice and, participation awards for everybody. Like, no, you don't even deserve a participation award in 2025 for this crap. Okay? You're getting expelled and like, go live in the woods, go live under the bridge with a troll, and even the troll probably wouldn't have them and would throw them out in the cold. So, I mean, if you want to do like an intellectual deep dive into characters, that is all well and good. But yeah, when you're presented with characters that don't really have very many flaws, that's okay. All right? Let them be what they are. If they don't have any flaws, they don't have any flaws. We don't need you to arbitrarily give them some because you feel shitty about yourself. Put some effort into bettering yourself so that you feel less pressure to like bring everybody else down to your level. Okay? Instead, maybe try to bring yourself up to somebody else's level, because this kind of stuff is like, it's gross. Because if they are doing this with a crazy old cartoon show, they are doing it to real people too. And all you got to do is turn on the news or turn on the gossip columns, any day ending in Y, and you can see that, and that's the problem. People might watch this and be like, well, yeah, well, it is just a cartoon show and they're just having fun and who cares? Well, it's all about the principle of it. And if people are willing to do it with this, they're willing to do it in the real world with real people too. And that's not okay, because people do need to realize that you don't need a label. You don't need someone telling you what you can or can't achieve as far as like your character and your integrity goes. All of those things are things that you can decide what you want to be and what kind of a person that you want to be. And the Scooby Gang are very good role models for choosing to do the right thing, even in the face of adversity. And that is the point of Scooby-Doo.
Joel, final thoughts?
When you sent us like the topic, I got really excited, and then I read the articles. But I knew as a consolation prize, we get like a 2021 era Wendy rant out of it. So there's that.
You're welcome.
So the Wired article was the first article that I found. And reading about all of that, I knew that it would set Wendy off. And that's why we're talking about the psychology of Scooby-Doo.
Oh,
so yeah. I'm wondering if that article was based on the characters from the live action movie. Because I do feel like in that movie they had those traits. Fred was, you know, kind of a narcissist, and
yeah.
So I wonder if that is what, because it didn't specify what era of Scooby-Doo, but it could have been based on the live action movie. That would make sense. But if you're going to base it on that, at least say that. They just kind of, I mean, I guess it's psychology of cartoons is how their title is. And the live action movie wouldn't be a cartoon.
No.
But still, they could be just taking those characters from the movie and just saying, oh, well, this is how it is.
That is definitely something. I'm so glad that you brought that up. That is definitely something that I have witnessed with other properties where people, and it's not even like they're doing it consciously. They watch a movie and they assume that the book is the same or that the show is the same. And very often that is not the case. There was a few years ago, and I followed this account on Instagram. It was some highfalutin Nancy Drew thing anyway, like not just like a fangirl kind of thing, but like talking about more in-depth stuff. And the girl that was running it, she wrote this big long thing where she was just like, oh, you know, all the people that think that Nancy's so prim and proper, like, you're full of shit. You've never read classic Nancy. So in the 30s, you know, the first however many books had a text, and when they rewrote them or they re-released them in the 50s, they rewrote them. So earlier versions, you know, you have an original text when it has more than 20 chapters. All the ones in the 50s were all pared down to be only 20 chapters. And in many cases, they just like rewrote the whole story. A lot of it is just like editing for what they considered at the time offensive language. So they would take out certain references or names or things like that. But a lot of it was content removal or absolutely changing. There's at least there's two books where the story is not even a rewrite. It's a completely different story from the 1950s or the original text in the 30s. But anyway, and this girl, she was going off on people that were like defending Nancy as like a prim and proper lady. And she was like, well, you don't know classic Nancy. You've never read classic Nancy because Nancy was a rebel and she was a pain in the ass to the police and the police hated her and she was always getting into trouble and she was clumsy and this and that. And I'm like, whoa. Because we all know how I feel about Nancy Drew. But at the time, I had not read any of the original texts. And I like to pop off about stuff, but I'm not saying I'm always right, but I'm not going to pop off about something that I have not at least done some amount of research on. So it turned out that I had 4 books that were the original text that Crystal had gotten me for my birthday one year, and they were just sitting on a shelf as decoration. I had no idea that there were different versions of the text or whatever. And I'm like, great, I can test her theory. Is she right? Have I been completely oblivious to the character that Nancy originally started out as? And I read all 4 of those books, and you know what? She was absolutely full of crap. Completely. Since then, I have read over half of the original texts for all of those books, and not one single one has a different Nancy than what you see in the 50s or going forward. Where she got that idea, at first I was like right out of her butt, but I'm like, how do you come up with something so polar opposite to the truth? Like, where did you even get that from, you know? And then I remembered that they made a series of movies in the 30s starring Bonita Granville as Nancy Drew. And I remember buying the DVDs when I first got Amazon, and I hated them because I'm like, what book did you read? I mean, I know that this was only like 4 years after the books started coming out, but there was at least 4 books. How? Because you know what they made her? They made her a pain in the ass. They made her clumsy. They made it so the police thought that she was just a nuisance. She was a rebel. And I'm like, okay, so you saw the movies and you're like, you're going to try and tell people that because the movies were made at the time that the books were originally written, that that's the way that the books were written, when in reality, you have never read a classic Nancy Drew in your whole entire life. And I know you haven't, because now I have, and you're just completely wrong. Frankenstein, if you've seen the Universal version with Boris Karloff, you have no idea what Mary Shelley's book was, because it is not even close to being the same thing. The monster is completely different. You feel sympathy for Boris Karloff in the Universal movie. You don't. There is no sympathy to be had for the monster in Mary Shelley's book, because he is a monster. Completely different. So I absolutely agree with you. I think this very well might be a case where somebody watched a movie and they're like, okay, well, this must be how it is. And instead of doing any kind of fact checking for that to see if that's accurate, to just like Joel said earlier, they learn like this tiny little piece of information, and then they think they're an expert and they run their mouth, and it's like, yeah, you literally have no idea what you're talking about.
It would make sense if they based it on the movie, because the way that they described everything was most similar to the movie.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
And like Mark said, I think if you're going to do any type of psychological research into Scooby-Doo, you have to include the positive.
Right.
Because these characters are positive. They're role models.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just be like, well, Fred's a narcissist and Daphne is the pretty girl and Velma lacks emotion. Like,
yeah,
there's so much more to them, and they do so much good. And I would like to see somebody that truly wants to write an article about the psychology of Scooby-Doo write something that includes the positive. You can include the negative. I mean, they're not perfect. They're flawed. Everyone's flawed. But yeah, at least give them a chance and include the positive. Because I don't think that they would have such drastic disorders if you included them as a whole.
No.
I mean, everyone has days where they're just being an ass.
Yeah.
You know? That doesn't mean that that is the one thing that they're going to base your entire personality on. Yeah. I was disappointed in these articles, but
mm-hmm.
Wendy never disappoints when she goes in.
Okay. Maybe I'll write my own blog post.
There we go. I would read it. We are going to wrap things up. Before we do, let everyone know where they can find you on social media. Wendy, we'll start with you.
I'm most active on Instagram. I'm at Wendy Bridge. On Twitter X, I'm Wendy Loves Jesus. And my blog, where someday you may be discussing exactly what we have been discussing now, but hopefully we'll have a totally different takeaway. My blog is wendylovesjesus.wordpress.com.
Joel?
YouTube, just type in Planet Scooby.
Mark?
You can find me on Instagram under Scooby and Mark.
And you can find all my links on ScoobyAddicts.com. Let us know your thoughts on the psychology of Scooby-Doo, and thank you for joining us for another Scooby Panel. Thank you for tuning in to another Scooby Panel. I'm Nikki Blake from ScoobyAddicts.com. If you like these panels, please subscribe to my channel for more great discussions. A huge shout out to our patrons, Julie Rosen, Ross from ScoobyFan.net, Tagus, Garrett Spencer, Paul the Scooby Dude, and Jesse. If you would like to support the Scooby Panel, please go to patreon.com/ScoobyAddicts. A very special thank you to artist, blogger, and Scooby collector Wendy BRYDGE, Joel from Planet Scooby, and Mark Morrison from Scooby-Doo and Mark. Scooby Panel is available in podcast form on most podcast platforms or as a web series on YouTube. You can find Scooby Panel on Instagram, Facebook, and X as @ScoobyPanel. We are part of the Collector's Maze Network, where you can find all things geek. Scooby and Shaggy were voiced by Scott Innes. Check out Scott's website, onescottshop.com. Scooby Addicts artwork by Will Davenport. Scooby Panel logo by Garrett Spencer. Video editing by Nikki Blake. Music composed and performed by Bovine Nightmares. Please join us next time for another Scooby Panel.